The question on everybody's lips, is the Perth market the one we should be buying in, or has it run out of steam? And that's really the thing that we need to be asking ourselves as investors for any market that we're in buying, because the ultimate goal here is to buy the best property in the best location at the best price for your buyer brief, and that buyer brief dictates the rest of the other things. And Perth is one of those ones that's now starting to come into the media quite a lot. Some people see that as a green shoot. Other people see that being a red flag. So what we wanted to do is get an absolute property expert. Her name is Ashleigh Goodchild. We had her on 14 months ago. She was talking about amazing locations. And if you invested in some of those locations that we were talking about back 14 months ago, you'd be up over $100,000. And this week, this live session is all about understanding what are the new legislation changes in the property market for WA, because they've made some changes, but also around the grounds. Where are the investment grade locations that still have strong rental yields and rental growth coming? Hey everyone, my name is Joe Tucker, and together with Jeff Miles, we created Oz Property Investors, which is Australia's largest property investment community with over 72,000 active investors going hard after property investment. And each week we interview Australia's top properties experts. So you are lucky enough to be a part of that community. Welcome and enjoy. Like and subscribe, join the community, and let's jump into this epic session with Ashleigh Goodchild from Soco.
And we are live on Oz Property Investors. We bring the big names and we have the big fun. And sorry about keeping you waiting. We're just having so much fun in the green room or whatever, the blue room. I don't think it's the green room. How you going, Ash? What's happening?
I'm good. Well, Perth is busy. I can get straight into it if you want, but it's a very interesting market because we're still seeing so much mentioned in the media, and it's a bit of a different story over here. But I mean, overall, it's all still pretty good. Personally, I'm really good, Jeff. If you're wanting to know how I was going personally, I've just got dinner on the stove. I mean, property's great. Kids are healthy.
They're doing their sports. That's what we want. Just don't burn the house down. Like, make sure one of the kids turns dinner off or turns it on or whatever you have to do with I don't want you burning down.
It will make a good live though, wouldn't it, if it was?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for thinking of it. That's what we want. Property manager burns house down while live on podcast.
Whether it's good or bad media, it's all good, isn't it?
It's all good. As long as Soco's in the name, it's okay.
Exactly.
How are you, Jeff?
I'm good actually, and I realized I have to hit the go live. I didn't hit the automatically go live, so we are live on YouTube. So
great.
Hit the like, YouTube. Hit the subscribe, do all that sort of good stuff. But yeah, so yeah. I'm fantastic. I realized, so I got a notification today is my 4-year anniversary to Oz Property Investors apparently. So yeah, I mean, I know that's just the last date we changed the Facebook group. So I think we started the group around probably, who knows, February or March 2020. We started just as COVID was sort of hitting off because, yeah, so we are now live though on Facebook for those joining us. So everybody's going to, so yeah, going well, man. Just enjoying sort of what's happening around the grounds and looking at property myself as well. Not for myself, but yeah, helping kind of people down in Wollongong and just having chats with people about that. It's just interesting to hear. But no, tonight is about Perth, and I want to sort of set the scene. So 14 months ago, roughly to the day, just sort of, let's say 13 and a half months, because it was about the 30th of March of 2023. Not on this day because it wasn't. So Ash came on and she shared some absolute gems and absolute sort of value and sort of took us through that was the introductory to Perth. And this is going to be more like, okay, well, what's the sort of current state of that sort of market from a property manager's perspective and where she's getting the inquiry, and also some really juicy legislative changes that people have to absolutely be aware of and just sort of understand, because there's a lot of potential half truths around it. So it's going to be an amazing session. People can ask questions, and we'll get to as many of those as we can. So I will. This
is the most interesting thing, is because 14 months ago, if anyone bought where Ashleigh was talking about 14 months ago, you would have $120,000 worth of equity right now. If you took. Maybe more, most likely more, to be honest. If you bought well, but I wonder if things are changing. Have we still got the same enthusiasm? Is things still tracking along nicely? That is to be determined. Cool. Okay, what do we do now, Jeff?
bit mystic. So we probably should introduce Ash. For those of you who haven't seen Ashleigh absolutely around, you are almost everywhere. It's impressive. I think you've cloned yourself potentially, Ash, but you have more than 20 years experience in real estate and a knowledge of and a passion as well, which is why we love, one of the reasons why we love chatting to you. You're knowledgeable and your passion, and you're a business owner there at Soco. You've helped Joe along the way as well. You've got your PM Collective podcast. You've got your thing with Jackie Skeen as well. That sort of investors sort of course. I should know the name of it, but the thing that you also love is that you love having an empty inbox and time to enjoy baking. So I don't know where you find the time to do that, but you also have an active life kid. So what's your favorite thing to bake anyway?
I would probably say that it's pretty classic stuff like kids' lunchbox stuff, choc chip cookies, etc. However, I have got on my to-do list an orange and polenta cake. So that's on this week's. I try to do like one cake a week for the kids for afternoon tea. So that's this week's.
One cake a week.
Yeah.
That's so good. Polenta though, I'm not into
morning
that.
Morning teas, Joe, man. I'm cooking them at least once a week, depending on how much quantity you make. Like you make your sort of jam slice, so you got your Anzac biscuits, so you got your scones, all that stuff, man. I'm baking extraordinaire. Not really. But.
Okay, let's go back to property. I don't care about baking.
People say
yum. Hear about.
Lisa loves it. Okay, good. So no, it's going to be great. So as part of, as I sort of said, we're going to be heaps of sort of data and knowledge and just on boots on the ground, wholesome boots on the ground knowledge. But first off, Ashleigh, I want to ask you, how did you get into property in the property industry? What made you want to
20
join?
Years ago. It's a bloody while ago.
Yeah.
It's a very simple answer. I was studying naturopathy. I had finished the course. I was 18. I had 100 massage prac hours that I had to do to like get signed off. So while I was doing the prac hours for massage, I got myself a little receptionist job at a local real estate agency. And as an 18-year-old, when you start earning money and then you've got, massaging people, it was just like, I think I'll just go to work. Don't read too far into that, but it was easy as an 18-year-old to go back to work. And I was working for a couple that had just bought a real estate agency, and one was a pilot and the other was an air hostess, and they were absolutely useless, like had no idea how to run this agency. And so me being a bit of a doer, I just sort of worked it out, helped them along the way. And then honestly, it must have been within 3 months. I was doing the payroll, I was doing strata management, I was doing property management. I was just doing it all for them. So for me, it was just being thrown into the deep end because these people had no idea what they were doing. So and then I've just been in it ever since. And I think I love real estate, but I think it's the business side of things that I love. Like I love that. And I've always said that I could have been doing hairdressing at the age of 22 and I still would have had my own business. It just happened that I was in real estate, and therefore real estate was the business that I started.
Super interesting. That's a great story. I had no idea. I love that. One of the things that I like to think about is actually the whole reason this group exists is to surround yourself with people that are doing the thing that you want to do, and then just having a conversation with them and realizing, oh, they're not that special. They're not that, like, they're awesome. They're incredible. They're amazing, but they're not 10 times better than me. Why do they have 10 times more things than me? Why do they have 10 times more wealth? What's that? Where's the disconnect here? Because I'm not 10 times worse than this person. And it's like, surround yourself with people and you'll start to realize you are capable and you can achieve it. And you joined that business, that property management business, and started to see, oh, I'm doing everything. I am doing everything. I've created it all. I love that. I obviously those guys weren't the absolute best of the best teaching you along the way, but I don't know. Is it better to just kind of be thrown in the deep end, or learn, slowly from someone who's the absolute best, but you probably might not get as much attention? I don't know.
You mean learn from the current Ash? You mean?
Yeah, I was just thinking. Yeah, just the newbie 18-year-old starting with you.
So let's that's a great story. Like it's quite unique. I've not heard that sort of somebody's intro into property, and every person's story is quite unique and can be interesting. So yeah, good on you for sharing, and thanks for that. So let's get into what's happening in Perth. The the talk of the town still. 14 months ago it was very people were excited about it. Now people are still even more excited about it. So how interesting is that? But I want to sort of actually, I'll ask this question before we get into talk about vacancy rates and yields and what's selling and what you're sort of seeing around the ground. I want to know, like, how does this compare to the 2012, 2013, sort of 2014 period in Perth? Like, I know that's a hard comparison, but what does that sort of feel like? Just a very subjective feel.
2014. I mean, I obviously focused on the rental side, not the sales side, so I didn't pay much attention to sales back then. But 2014 in WA was, I think, the year where our rents went back 30%. They went into negative.
Wow.
And so it was really, really tough. And it really sets for an interesting story with the whole investor journey, because landlords really had to do it tough. And do you know what? They did it gracefully. And I think that's where I get quite irked up by landlords being greedy, and comments that I see in the media these days about that, because I think to myself, you know what, back in 2014, they all did the right thing. They dropped their rents when the market was slower. They went down 30%. Some of them had to sell because they didn't have the money behind them to renovate them. And then COVID happened again. They were all pretty reasonable, some of them giving tenants no rent or low rent. And I just feel like since 2014, landlords have done it tough, and they've really done the right thing, and in respecting the market wave and going with the flow a lot more. So then to be in now 2024, where it's swung the other way, it's really hard for me to sort of keep my mouth shut about it, because the question I always say is, landlords aren't greedy. Is asking for market rate greedy or not? I mean, there are greedy landlords out there, but the landlords that are asking for market rate or wanting market rate, that's the wrong terminology to use. So that's sort of really what has happened since 2014 in the rental market. Sales, I'm not really 100% sure, because like I said, it wasn't a focus point. It is now. But obviously, since I've been focused on the investor market for the last 3 or 4 years, it's definitely grown considerably as well. And sales agents' marketing methods have changed. The way they're pricing properties has changed. Some of them don't even know what a property's worth these days, because they have no idea. So that's a really interesting space. Like, there are definitely agents that I know of where a marketing technique is to price low, to really just get all the inquiries and see what people pay. And I would question, if you're buying a property with one of those agents and you're paying 70,000 over that, marketing price, are you paying market price or are you paying over? I think you're paying market price still, personally. However, I was speaking to a friend of mine who sells, but more like closer to the CBD. And she actually was talking to me about that video I created, and was saying, well, Ash, actually, no, I price properties with what they're worth. So if I price a property for $550,000, that's what my owner is happy with. Anything more is a bonus. So she goes, I absolutely don't advertise for more than what the owner's expecting to get. And she did get $600,000 for that property, but that surprised her, and it surprised the her seller. So I think it just goes to show that every single agent works differently, markets differently, and that makes for a very volatile, uncertain experience for buyers, because you are buying, you don't know who they are. You don't know whether they're a traditional seller, selling agent, or one of the gung-ho ones. So that makes it really tricky to navigate.
So what's the solution? How do you as an investor fix that?
Well, I think there's 2 things that I go by. So when I am giving some guidance, relaxed guidance to buyers, I tend to use the rental yield as a bit of a guide to see if they're on track. And then I also use the recent sales. And generally, when I'm looking at the recent sales, when I've had to do that, the clients have gone the very top end of what those recent sales are, and sometimes even a little bit more. And to be honest, that's all you can really do. But you need to have someone, on your team, like myself or like any other property manager or real estate professional, to be able to say, hey, can you provide me the report for recent sales so that you can go into the buying a property confidently. But if you don't have someone as a support, you're not going to have access to that information. It's going to make it a little bit, you can do it, but probably to have the confidence behind you, you need that extra information.
Well, that's
how are we going with floor? I was going to say, how are we going with floor plans?
We're getting there. We're getting there.
Okay. Are we getting there slowly?
Very slowly.
Can I tell you a funny story about a floor plan? I was looking at a property the other day, and I was like going through the photos, looking at this property for sale, and then bam, the agent had just got a pen and a paper, and he had just drawn the floor plan with a piece of paper and taken a photo of it. And I was like, you know what? I guess it's something, isn't it? But it certainly wasn't professional.
It's certainly not
an
something.
A for effort.
I'm good.
An F
A for effort. There's little apps. There's apps on your phone that you can build out floor plans on. So, or just get someone to do it, get someone out there. But as an interstate investor, it's a big deal. Like, I think it helps me a lot understand the potential for a value uplift. Like, if I can add a fourth bedroom, that is worth more to me than if I can't. What were we saying before? Oh, like how to get confident. Like, it comes down to confidence, like to be able to know the price. Like, it doesn't matter what the real estate agent's listing, because that's exactly what you're saying, Ash. The price is here, and then some agents are going up, some agents are going low. It's really just going to come down to your skill and knowledge of, I know this area really, really well, and I know that the property down the road sold for $550 and the property down the road there for $55. But one little tip, if you are brand new to the market and really want to get your head around what the recent sales are, obviously you've got the sold section of real estate, but then you have the for sale side of real estate that has under offer. And what you can do is call all of those real estate agents, because I see so many people get frustrated in hot competitive markets like Perth still is so very competitive, especially online. Like, if you're just going on realestate.com, you don't really stand much of a chance. But then it's like, oh, that one's $550, that one's $550, that one's $555. I'm going to go in, that one's $550, that one's $555. Great, I'm going in $555. You go to the under offer, you call the agent, how much is this one? $560, $560, $562. And all of a sudden you understand actually the real market value, the current market value for this property is now $560. So I should probably go in with a stronger offer if I want to secure it, or $560 is actually too much for me. I don't see value in it. Move on to the next market. And but yeah, that's a great little top tip. The problem is with it is it's a little uncomfortable. You got to call agents. It takes time, but you got to do it. You got to do it to get the results.
Yeah, got to pick up the phone.
You'll pick up the phone.
So before we get into what's going on around with yields and vacancy rates and all that, we'll run our first ad, Joe. Let's do that.
Oh, yeah.
We'll jump into it.
Go on then. I'll just click this button.
Hi all, I've got a big problem. This is the Policey Property weekly sponsorship ad. Except today, I've got nothing to sell, and this is because of you. Due to all your kind words, comments, amazing feedback, and sincere compliments about my newly released commercial property investment course, the Commercial Property Institute, I realised today that due to the Facebook algorithm, many of you, in fact, the majority of you, still may not have heard about this yet. So I'm going to do 3 things that no other course provider would even dare to do. Let's start with number 1. I've taken out 5 lessons of the course and put them in the link that's being dropped into the chat right now. This way you can see the value in the course, you can see the production, and you can see for yourself the depth of the insight that we dive into. Every other course provider hides everything behind a paywall, and you only find out if it's valuable or not when it's too late. Not me, you're going to see 5 sneak peek lessons from the course from which you can make an informed decision about whether this is for you or not. Now, number 2. To further prove to you that this course will transform you from being a total beginner into an elite commercial property investor, I'm going to show you a picture of me before I discovered commercial property investing. And now, after I've discovered commercial property investing. Alright, you finally got your Steve without a beard shot, so it's time to get serious. Let's talk about number 3. And this will leave you without any doubts. Everything I know about commercial property is in this course. Every tool that we use at Policey Property is in the course. and it's delivered in a learn-at-your-own-pace online course at $4,997. But you're not going to pay that. In fact, you're not going to pay a cent if you're quick. I've decided to extend the free offer to Ozprop Investors Group until the end of June. That's right, no cost, no credit card, lifetime access until the end of June. All you have to do is click the second link here in the chat and it'll take you to the page where people normally pay $4,997 for it. At this page, type in the discount code OZPROP and instantly get the Commercial Property Institute course for free. No catches, no gimmicks, just a limited time only offer. So click the link right now and get your instant access free. Thanks again for the amazing feedback, and I look forward to seeing thousands of commercial property moguls in the near future. Cheers, guys.
Cheers, guys.
It's a bit like, yeah. I feel so calm with that music in the background. I feel like I need to start anyway. So people are asking where we are. So Ashleigh is over in Perth. I'm not in Perth because it's dark here. It's starting to get dark in here. But let's get into it. So for those, we are going to talk about what it is if you want. So the vacancy rates, what are yields looking like, and what are the sort of selling sort of things like as well? What's the on the ground truth in Perth at the moment?
Yeah, the rental yields, people are still looking to get sort of that 5.2% plus yield. So they're getting that. I mean, back when we last did it, I'm pretty sure it was up at about 6%, sort of 5.86%. So it's come down. I mean, it's still pretty good, but yeah, when we're looking at a property and it's say 600 per week, so 600,000, then most people would be expecting a rent between that 580 and 600 per week for it, where previously they'd be getting that 620, 630, 640 a week for the property. But interesting,
they would get that amount. So
they would normally.
So rental values are dropping.
Well, no, see, I would look at it the other way. I would say it's not the rental values that are dropping. I would say that people are just paying not too much, but they're just paying over. Yep. So but also what's happening is it's taking a little while for landlords and investors to sort of catch up with that mentality, because we are definitely seeing that there's owners out there that maybe did buy 12 months ago, getting their second tenant in the property, and in their mind they're still thinking that they want that growth and they want that yield, when in fact there's times where we're advertising properties. This is for everyone. We're advertising properties and we're just not getting the inquiries come through. So yes, there are definitely certain properties and areas where you get smashed with inquiries and you're getting 30, 40 people through, but really you're getting just as many where a lot of no-shows happening at rental properties, maybe only 4 or 5 people booking in to register for a home open, and we're starting to see rents having to drop, but it's because the owners have just still in their mind thinking that they're going to keep on getting that growth, and really they haven't. They've had to be brought down a bit, but they're only willing to bring their price down when they've experienced a couple of weeks of advertising, and then going back and say, listen, I don't know what else to do. There's no inquiries coming through. So I would say to you, and I've always said this, tenants in WA specifically will not overpay for a property for rent. If they think an owner's being greedy, advertising too much, the property's not worth it, they won't take it, because they don't want to actually deal with the landlord that is potentially listed as, like I said, I hate using that word, one of those greedy landlords. So people are very but people are very rent savvy, to be honest, at the moment. So I just feel like that you really, if you have a property for rent and you have a home open on that property, you would want to be getting like 30 people coming through is very strong. We just leased out a property in Westminster. I'm getting my highest amount of inquiries on rental properties. I think we had 60 people through a home open, loads of applications, and the property actually went for $80 more per week than what we were advertising it for. So that's a great case study. But go down to maybe Rockingham, or actually one in Mandurah, we've been trying to advertise for a while, $670 a week, not getting any inquiries. Had a home open last Saturday, 4 people booked in, no one showed up. We've just reduced it down to $650 per week, still trying to really work our magic to get that one leased. So it's very, very hit and miss. No consistency.
Super interesting. So what's happened? Is it like, I mean, where are they going? Because what I feel like 14 months ago, the question was not, it wasn't up to the tenants. They didn't have a choice. You get the place, you have to have it because there's so much demand and so much pressure. Is a little bit of that rental steam kind of come off?
Yeah, again, I don't think there's any consistency with it. We've got you definitely got the people that have got poor references that are probably the ones really struggling at the moment, because no one is going to lease to someone that has a poor or potentially no reference. The good tenants, the ones with the great references, they're staying put. Their owners aren't selling their property because they're good tenants. They're like, there's no movement there. I don't know. That's sort of what I'm thinking. It's really the people that are having to move and owners that are selling their properties are generally the ones that have had a headache and getting rid of them. And those tenants are not on the scene because no one will lease to them.
Yeah. Okay. So Deborah's jump in here, said the tenants that are looking are wanting the lower rent properties.
Yeah, so absolutely. So we're finding that any properties probably over that $650 per week mark, that's a very slow market. And if you've got a property that's under that, like Deb said, 500 a week, you'll find 550 and 600, you'll probably find as well. But the minute you hit 650, it's getting out of that affordability for people. So
interesting.
Yeah. That's very interesting, because that kind of puts, I think this is one of the important things that some people don't think about when over the long term. So like right now, it's very easy, like from property data, I think it's somewhat easier. I don't want to use the word, but you can kind of tell which market has pricing pressure, and you can see that the property market's going to go up there. Like there is enough visuals there to see, yep, that market's going to do well. But the hard part is like, how is that going to sustain? How are you going to get that long-term sustainable growth? Because if that market is capped at 650, no one else can borrow that anymore. It's going to be, for renting, this is going to be similar with property prices as well, because the market can't, the prices aren't getting pushed up. The investors are now no longer interested because the yield is not getting any better for them. And things just kind of, I don't know, slow down a little bit. Not saying that's the case, but...
And 100%, and that's what I always try to teach people.
I imagine that.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. So I was going to say it's about buying appropriately. So, exactly what you said. If 650 is really like the sweet point, the max, then buying for 550,000, 590,000. For me, that's like a really sweet price to be paying for something, because there is affordability in that 600 a week, which is what you're going to be wanting to get if you buy for 580,000. And there's still that little bit of a buffer available. But if I had a client today looking to spend 800,000, so you spend 800,000, that yield is going to come straight back down again, and it's going to be a little bit harder to have that buffer for that growth, exactly like what you said.
One question I had is, what are the assets what are the types of properties that we should be kind of avoiding or not thinking about from a rental perspective? Like, what is the stuff that is staying on the market? So I was having a chat with another property manager in a regional Queensland location, and she was like fully fenced. The whole property has to be fully fenced. Like you can't have, an open fence on the front. And I'm like, how much of a big deal is that? She's like $40 to $50 a week. I was like, that's
security, I imagine.
Very unique thing. But yeah, so what are some of the things in your markets that you're seeing?
It's got to be a shed, probably.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's probably more about what features it's got as opposed. So like a shed, I agree. I think a shed's a great idea, but I think, an aircon is a big thing generally as well. But really what tenants want in WA is to deal with a nice property manager, a nice landlord, a reasonable landlord, one that they can see looks after the property reasonably. It's not a problem that you have an old house, but it needs to be well maintained. It needs to not be a DIY repair job here and there. That's probably what's really important. I mean, even coming down to painting, if we've had tenants where they've looked at properties, and if the paint work is looking really, poor, then that would be something that they go, we're not willing to live in this standard of home. So freshly painted or like really clean walls. So, some people might say, oh, but it's a rental crisis and, you should be thankful for what you can get. But it's actually not the case. They still want to live in a really lovely, well-maintained home with an investor or a landlord that treats that property well. And so really, I'd say that would be the main thing that people are looking for. So definitely no DIY maintenance on a property, and well looked after, and and clean and feels nice going through. That's really what Perth tenants are wanting.
Nice, yeah, because this is the biggest problem. The biggest thing that I learned very quickly was the value of a property manager. So my first rental experience was exactly these property investors that you're talking about. Like, no, Ashleigh, I know you're telling me that the market rent is $650, but I know because I saw this listing, they got $670. So I want $670. So I advertised it 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So I just lost, let's just say it was $500 a week. I just lost $500, $1,000, $1,500, $2,000. And then I'm like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to advertise this thing and I'm going to give 2 weeks for free. And I know that over the 52 weeks, I'm actually going to be up because I get a tenant in quicker and I'm a super smart boy, but I'm still get my number. But what that did is it attracted the wrong type of tenant. So what happened, and after that, I had like 6,000 or 7,000. It might have even been more. Like just a terrible tenant experience. They wrecked the place. They trashed the place. They had holes in the walls and everything, and they didn't give a crap. But it was like I attracted that type of person because of the type of property that I had. I didn't paint the walls because I didn't think it would need the paint. But if someone's willing to live in an asset like that, that's the type of people that you're going to get. So you need to present a property in a way that isn't going to, negatively impact the type of tenant that you want. A good tenant wants a good property. So make a good property. That's my top tip, the Tucker top tip.
That's it.
Can I be really?
It's crazy. We're half an hour in already.
Yeah,
I want to be really cheeky and say something, because when you were talking about 1 week you're losing 500 and then 2 weeks it's 1,000 a week and then 1,500 a week. And the first thing that came to mind is that when looking for a property manager, you have investors out there that are trying to bargain a management fee down to save themselves, let's say $500 a year, when in fact they're also the same people that are happy to have the property vacant for 3 weeks and lose $1,500 a year. And it's like, if you just pay the full price that the property manager wants, but they are the property manager that's going to lease that property in the first week, ultimately they're saving you money. Like, don't worry about this 1% that you're trying to save. So that was the first thing that came to mind when you said that.
Yeah, 100%.
It's the old penny wise and pound foolish kind of thing. Like you're picking up kind of 10 cents to miss the $10 that's down the road.
Yeah. I see that. I see that all the time as well. And I don't want to, but I would like to pay. I think property managers get not paid enough for what they do. WA is the only place that it's kind of like reasonable, but still it's not enough for the amount of work that you do. Like it's only until you have a terrible property manager experience that you realize the true value of the property manager. When everything's going great, it hurts a little bit because you're like, oh my gosh, I'm paying $25 a week or $30 a week to this person. Who cares? They're looking after the place and making sure it's not collapsing. Whatever the number is. I don't even know.
I don't think property managers actually showcase all the behind the scenes work they do. So that's sort of on us to maybe we should be educating a bit more like that, what we do behind the scenes, instead of just making it look like it's all easy when in fact there is a lot of work. So that's on us to make sure we educate clients better with that.
Oh, that's a good point. Jeff, you got a question? I mean, a comment?
Yeah,
something?
This is an interesting one. We'll talk about this a little bit more because it's become, I mean, I don't know if you can actually even deny this now, but how about renting property with 2 dogs where the tenant is ready to pay a premium rent and has stable income? I mean, sounds reasonable to me, but what are your thoughts on that, Ash?
First up, I would say it all comes down to that rental reference. So I would be wanting to see a rental reference for the dog and a rental reference for the human renting the property. So for me, that's the only thing that's missing from that. I would, I mean, dogs, in 2015, 3 years that I've been doing real estate, I've had 2 pet issues. Both have been related to cats and not to dogs. I don't personally have an issue with them. I haven't had any bad experiences with them, but it is a lot easier to be having rental references for the dog and the renter. But we're soon not going to have an option with pets, which is one of the new legislation changes we were going to talk about as well today.
The thing that sort of stands out for me is they're saying premium, the word premium. That sort of concerns me a little bit. Like, what I would have that conversation with the property manager and say, well, what does that mean? What do you think about that premium price? Are they paying because their references aren't so great? That potentially would be, rather than the dogs. I mean, dogs to me aren't a huge issue. I mean, of course, depending on the dogs, but it's more about, well, why are they willing to pay that extra? Is it because they've been knocked back elsewhere, or are they on ticker? Like, maybe do it a deep digging is what I'd probably suggest, because why do you need to?
Ticker is like a tenancy database check if it's a bad reference.
I thought you said ticker. I was like, oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, I did.
Cool.
Yeah, great. So what are you on that? So is there any other? Because I want to know, Ash, where do you see rents? Because last time you said you didn't see rents slowing down. Where do you sort of see things?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, you froze just a bit then.
Going for kind of 6 or 12 months rent-wise.
Yeah, we are going to still see the rents. Like, we're still doing $20, $50 a week renewal increases with our rental properties. $20 to $50 a week sometimes is still quite a bit under market rate. So they are still pretty strong. I feel like when tenants apply for a property, they generally, even though 30% is sort of what best practice is, where a tenant applies for a property and they need to sort of show that the rent's no more than 30% of the income. But we still have a lot of applications that come through at 17%, 22%, quite low. So there's still that room to move. We're seeing an increase in, 3 guys when renting a property together. We've seen pensioners rent together. We're seeing groups of people rent together. So though when that happens, people can still afford more because you've got 3 independent incomes. So they don't mind paying an extra $10 or $20 each per week. And that's ultimately another $60 for the landlord per week. So I feel like there is still room to move while I'm still seeing the affordability under 30%. The minute that I start seeing a high volume of applications come in at 35%, 40%, I would say we're going to start finding some stress there. But I still feel like we've got a bit of a buffer.
That's interesting. So do you see a correlation? This is probably not something you look into too much, but the ABS stats, right? The ABS is done they give the census every 4 years, and then you can see how much incomes everyone has. Do you see that they're kind of it kind of matches up with the areas that you're seeing people not being able to afford the 30% versus what it is in reality?
Yeah, I mean, I don't follow the data side of things, but I follow on the ground. I can tell you there is one clear region that is getting a higher amount of tenant defaults. We're definitely seeing rent stress, absolutely. And the rent stress is coming from those families that are in the larger 4x2 homes, because generally they have family, kids. And life is expensive at the moment. It is really expensive. So we are definitely seeing rental stress and we're seeing definitely an increase in court applications for eviction. I would say to you, like, our government is so good. I really like our government mostly because they've done some really great grants. We have taken full advantage of a rent relief grant that the WA government's given, where if a tenant has been breached and terminated, the government will give us $5,000 to pay off their arrears. And pay for like some of their rent ongoing to up to $5,000 to help them. And I can't remember what the budget was, but that grant is going to continue until the money's run out. And it has helped a lot of people stay in. But I'm actually about to do some stats on this, because what's happening, and this is a real shame, and you guys are the first to hear this come out of my mouth before, but it is that the number of people that did take advantage of that $5,000 grant to bring them up to date have actually fallen into arrears again. And that is so disappointing to see. And that tells me we're now going through it's a mindset issue and a personality potential problem, if I'm going to be completely honest, with people that haven't taken this as a real blessing to put their families in a position where they haven't paid the rent again. It's the entitlement behind that is pretty disappointing. So
what you're saying is people who've had that opportunity to have that $5,000 have then not got themselves back on track. It's kind of they're back in arrears again. Some of those sort of people that have taken that grant.
Yeah, which is such a shame because they had $5,000 for free given to them to get back on track.
That's roughly 10 weeks, assuming the rent.
Well, it sounds like it should be spread out rather than a lump sum. So it's a lump sum rather than spread out over the annual.
Yeah, it is. But do you know what's really great is that for so many landlords and your clients and maybe those that are listening here, that we've been able to get that money for the clients, and that's really great that the government has been able to pay off those arrears for you so that you can start afresh.
Right?
Investors are being looked after, I feel, from that point of view. But that's just a bit of a sidetrack with it. But
isn't that sort of interesting though that the WA and it's no correlation doesn't equal causation. It's absolutely no, but it's just interesting that the WA is going really well at the moment. Queensland didn't really look after investors, but Victoria is absolutely hammering their investors at the moment, and that's coincidentally the market that's just not going that well. Maybe there's something in that. I mean, not saying Victorian government is watching this, but if you are, maybe take note. And it's really important that we in WA we're reflective of how it's going wrong over in Victoria to make sure that we don't follow that pattern. But we've got the new legislation coming in, and you'll find generally all of us are really happy with the new legislation coming in. Like it's fair, it's reasonable, makes things a lot more clearer for everyone. So even with that, overall the industry I feel is pretty happy. Nice.
Yeah.
Should we talk about some of those rental change, or do you have any more questions?
That's what I was going to say. I want to understand these new legislations because there was new legislations in Victoria. What was that? 2.5, 3 years ago? Which were like, oh damn, this is not good. This is not good for property investors. So what do we got? What's going on? What's the government changing and tweaking? So, what do they want?
So the first one is rent increases. So rent increases can only be done annually instead of every 6 months. So best practice for a lot of property managers was yearly anyway. I only like doing them yearly. I hated doing 6-month rent reviews and leases. So for me, I'm really happy with that. I think that's fair and reasonable. There's no caps, so we can still increase to what market rate is. But one thing I want to make sure that the investors listening understand is that if you have a tenant, a lease on your property, and it's started February this year and it expires in February next year, and you have got a 6-month rent review in there, so your rent is due to be increased in August. Let's say in WA you have to sort of specify amount. Let's say that you had a $500 per week lease for 12 months with the rent review clause to go up $10 per week in August. If you exercise that $10 per week, you won't be able to do, so that can be done, even though the laws will change just a bit earlier, or they might have changed now actually, but you won't be able to do another increase for 12 months after. So if you exercise that small little increase, when that lease comes up for expiry in February again, you're not going to be able to increase the rent. You're going to have to wait till August. So you might want to consider potentially not exercising that 6-month review and just waiting till the lease expires in February 2025 and then doing a proper market review then so that it's in line with your lease agreement. Potentially that's probably what I think someone should consider. And I want people to understand that as well, because it's new legislation, there's definitely going to be potentially some property managers that haven't had the training or the CPD training with regards to this. And so it's really great for investors to educate themselves, so that if a property manager tells you something different, you know that you can go to the DEMA's website, you can find the correct information, which is what I'm telling you, and you can just challenge that as well. So just make sure, just because it's a new law. DEMA's, so DEMIRS, the Department of Mining.
DEMIRS.
So those with the rent reviews in there that are happening, soon, just keep that in mind, and make sure that your property manager knows if you don't want to exercise that, because it could be a potential something that could be a factor.
Yeah, that's super, super important. And that's a great insight. Thank you for sharing that, because that makes perfect sense. Because if you think you can increase the rent maybe $30, $40 in 12 months, and then you take the $10 one, you've kind of messed up your opportunity there take it. It's not to, squeeze the juice, but it's like, what's market rent? That's all my thing is. I'm like, I don't want more than market rent. I just want market rent. And if the market dictates like the price, no one else. I mean,
and they're sort of saying they'll likely start it in July of 2024. This is from Commerce WA Gov website. So it was only passed and Pets Are Welcome likely to start again in July of 2024. It was only passed last month, so it's very fresh and very new. So so this is probably sort of.
And what's this thing about? So what's this thing about bidding up and you can't? What's the go with this?
So that again, I think that I just want to make sure everyone gets the right information with it. So a property manager can't encourage bidding for rental properties. They can't advertise a property from $600 a week, and they also can't advertise around $600 to $700 a week. So where this is something for people to keep in mind now. Best practice was never to go into all these applications and try and bid them all off each other. Property managers didn't really do that anyway. Maybe there was a few that did. Some, yes, would advertise from. And I'll tell you one where we had to sort of get an extra bit of advice on this and just be mindful is we had a house with a granny flat. We wanted to advertise it just as one because we didn't know whether we were going to rent it out as the front house and the back house, or someone wants it all together. So we actually thought, well, we might advertise with a range $600 to $800 a week or whatever it was, to capture how people wanted to rent the both homes. And we were told we can't do that. So just a tip that if you have two dwellings on the house, they do have to be advertised separately with fixed prices. But one thing that is really important to know is that a tenant can still offer more. So if what I think will happen is if you get 10 applications on a property and someone's offered $50 extra per week, they can still offer and you can still accept that higher rent. So if you have a property manager that says to you, oh, they've offered $50, but we're not allowed to take it, you actually can. So that's one is going to be a bit of a myth that you can do that as long as the property manager hasn't said to an applicant, hey, we really like your application, but there's another one in for $20 extra per week. Do you want to bump up your price? We can't do any of that at all. You'll get in massive trouble. So, but yes, if someone offers off their own back to put extra in per week, yes, you can accept it.
Yeah, okay. And then is that an investor's problem or a property manager's problem, right? Like if a tenant then complains, is that on the property manager or is that on me as the investor? Because obviously that's not something that you're going to be doing, but who's in trouble then?
It's a property manager's problem, because if I had a client say to me, I want you to advertise the property, or I want you to go back to the tenant and say they need to offer $50, a property manager should be saying, no, it's illegal to do. I can't do it, and I'm not doing it. So it's the property manager's job to say no, because we can't act outside the act. So no, our problem.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Because you don't want to get in the crosshairs of, but also you don't want to have to deal with that nonsense from an admin perspective of the tenant then the tenant's like, well, you're not allowed to do this. I'm not going to pay rent. It all becomes a big shit fight. And really all you wanted was just a nice tenant and with a good property manager. So pick your property manager well and just pay them whatever the fee is. Ask for a discount. But if it's rejected, that means they're probably not begging for your business.
Yeah, exactly. Now, the other change is pets, which I just want to sort of mention a couple of little warning things with this as well. So,
no goldfish.
Yeah, exactly. So owners won't, a tenant in a property can apply to have a pet, and the property manager will need to respond in 14 days. And if they don't accept the pets, if the landlord doesn't accept the pets, they're going to have a pretty good reason, and it'll go to the commissioner to make a final decision on, whether that request was reasonable or not. My understanding of this is, I was in my head thinking, okay, well, what if you're a landlord, you're planning to move into the property in 6 months, and you have a child that's got a high alert, allergy to cats? Like, surely that's a good reason not to accept cats. I don't think it's going to be, and the feedback I've got is that that's not going to be a valid reason. The other thing to keep in mind is that if you have a house with a small courtyard and someone's applied for 2 dogs, wants to put 2 dogs in there, is that another thing that's reasonable to decline? And the answer, I think, is going to be no, because for a couple of reasons. The first one being, who am I to tell you that you can't have 2 dogs, because I don't know that you don't walk the dogs 3 times a day. And you have how
6 dogs?
Maybe that's right. I mean, it's going to come down to your council laws, though. So like the council will have restriction on pets. But if you look around the world, pets are in apartments, and that's what they do in other places. So it's considered normal in other parts of the world. So I don't think that that's going to be a reason. However, there's 2 things that worry me about the pets. Actually, there's 3 things that worry me about pets. The first one is I'm really shit scared that I'm going to get an email request for a pet, and I'm I don't know, with emails, maybe I don't see the email, maybe it goes into your junk mail, I don't see it, and I miss that 14 days. That really scares me. And the number of property managers who are really bad with their emails, that is going to be a concern. You're going to have to be onto your inbox, making sure that is you're not missing those important emails. That's my first concern. My second concern is that I am going to worry for applications that come through on a property where there are no pets. And because what I'm worried about is that 2 weeks after, they're going to put an application in for a pet. And what that's going to do is that's really going to affect that trusting relationship that tenant is going to have with the property manager and the owner. And it's not going to set that relationship off on the best foot. And so for that reason, I am tempted to actually prefer and prioritize applications with pets, because at least I know what they've got, and I'm not going to be surprised with a surprise application during the tenancy. So they're things that are going through my head at the moment. And the third thing I think is really good to maybe consider as a landlord is that you can put conditions on. So you might say to the tenant, listen, I'm happy with your dog. However, I want on the condition that you have a professional steam clean of the carpets every 12 months and provide a receipt. That would be a reasonable thing to request, and you can put a condition on if it's seen as reasonable. So maybe that's something that people need to be mindful of, because that also goes into that alterations where tenants will have the opportunity to make minor alterations to the property. And same thing goes, if a tenant requests to paint their little girl's bedroom pink, you can say, yes, I approve that on the condition that it's painted cream at the end of the tenancy by a professional painter. So yes, you're accepting that request, but you're putting a condition in place.
Under what grounds would you be able to decline that, though? Because how can you say, you can't paint your room pink? I don't know.
Well, the problem is, if you paint this white wall pink, and then or black, right? And then paint cream over the top of it, and it shines through. I then don't have my exact same color wall, right? Because they've done a cheap layer of paint. Like, to what level of standard is okay, and how do you judge a level of standard on paint? It's a tough. They'll be like, well, it's white, it's cream. It's like, no, well, it's kind of pink through, isn't it? Which will be interesting.
Yeah, I'm hoping that the minor modifications don't get too out of control. I'm hoping that it's just simple as people wanting to put a TV bracket in the wall, which do leave really big holes. And so I'd be putting a condition in there that it's patched and that whole wall is painted professionally. If it was me, that's what I do, patching and painting of just the bolts. But, hanging points. So it's things to consider. If you've got a new build and you are putting a tenant in there for the first time, maybe rather than wait for a tenant to request, maybe as a landlord, you should consider going in and having hanging points professionally installed in the house, so that it's not a question that comes up by the tenant. So you've then got control of where you want those hanging points. You want to avoid cluttered hanging points on a wall. Maybe you just want 2 in a room, 1 on each wall. Maybe you provide that so that the tenant doesn't have to request it in the first place. There's things like that I think that all investors should be considering.
Yeah, right. That's a lot of thought for your investment. That's going deep. But I guess that as a property manager, you would recommend that kind of stuff, right? Like, you'd be like, look, to be honest, for a 4-bed, 2-bath that doesn't have any kind of TV point, maybe like it's really far away from the wall, they're going to want to put their TV there, put one up. Yeah. What about 6-month leases? Why don't we just do a whole bunch of 6-month leases, and then we can up the rent each time? Can we do that?
No, because
you only have it once every 12 months.
Sorry, yes. So actually this came up in some recent training that I did about it. And I said that I was concerned that landlords were going to do the 6-month lease and then kick them out and then put another person in at market rate. To be honest, I'm going to give you a bit of a personal thought on this. I think that, I win from it because you pay a letting fee every single time that new tenant changes over. So for me, I don't care because I'm the winner in the whole situation. But however, I feel like it's really unethical to do that. I wouldn't be encouraging it. And I don't think it's personally, I don't think it's of good character.
Doesn't stack up. Doesn't stack up from a numbers wise either. Like, all of that in and out. Like, if you're moving Nick's walls and stuff, couches, TVs, fridges, washing machine, dryers, they got to move all that crap out. They got to hit all your walls up on the way out and then move all their stuff back in. And yeah, it doesn't.
Oh, and not only that, you're going to have a letting fee. You're going to have a final inspection. You're going to have a ingoing inspection. You're going to have advertising. You're going to have 1 or 2 weeks in between tenancies anyway. And you're there just trying to chase $30 extra or something like that. It absolutely financially won't make any sense.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things is, I guess, like, a normal market shouldn't have market rent upping $20, $30, $50, $100, like constantly going up and up and up. Like, it's okay that your rent is at the same level last year as what you had it this year, once after having 40% growth. Like, it's okay. It's okay. It doesn't need to,
rent only went up. Rent only went up 30% in over 10 years. And that was an average around Australia. I'm not saying, and I think my first rental increase on my first property was like 4 or 5 years. Took ages, just because unfortunately I picked an asset that wasn't that much in demand. There was too many sort of tenants around.
Are you seeing any rental markets that are going backwards? Like, are there any markets where you're like, hey, yeah, this is becoming now a problem. We've got too much demand and too much supply and not enough demand.
Just give us a general location, not the suburb. Well, up to you. I don't
Rockingham.
Okay.
Rockingham.
Yeah.
So Rockingham LGA as a whole.
Yeah, correct. I'm just saying, well, what we're seeing on the ground is that previously we were leasing one home open, no problems at all. These days we're seeing 3 home opens, not necessarily always because lack of inquiry, but lack of quality applications. And for that reason, we are seeing that. So it's a little bit to do with the supply and demand. There's just so much movement there, selling and renting. But yeah, we're seeing definitely about 3 home opens on some properties needed to release them. Have the rents gone backwards? I wouldn't say they've actually gone backwards. They've still had an increase, but maybe just nothing drastic. Yeah.
How's the Parmelia, Aurelia, and Medina market going?
That's Rockingham as well, or Kwinana.
Yeah,
no. That's actually Kwinana, so town of Kwinana. So it is a different local government. Do you know, I feel like I should eat my words a little bit, because I have always said it's a high risk, high reward area, and it is. It's still very, very affordable. I have in the past been known to say it's at the bottom of the pecking order when it comes to quality. However, while that's a bit of a personal opinion, I can say professionally, it has been pretty good, not bad at all. We're getting nice young couples moving into those properties, wanting to do the right thing, wanting to start little families. And from a performance point of view, I've been really happy. We're not getting, I call it, like I've got headache suburbs, and that's actually not on my headache suburb list. So that's pretty good.
Okay. That's interesting. Okay. The demographic.
How about Joe's favorite? Oh, I was going to say,
what's my favorite?
How about Joe's favorite area is Armadale? What's happening over that way?
I like Armadale. I'm not going to lie. Again, so many people bag it out. I see it on social media, and I feel like people have a really strong personal opinion on it. And I can tell you that the few hundred properties that we manage just specifically in Armadale are great tenants, good hard workers. I think we've gone to court once down there in probably 6 years, which is fantastic. I'm a huge fan. It's definitely not on my headache list, and it's not causing me any problems.
How rents still sort of keep continuing to go up over that way, or?
Rents are still being pretty strong, especially with Seville Grove. Grove's probably got some really great growth, and then decent homes, like they're newer homes. I think though, if I can say clients that are maybe looking at spending 650 or 700,000 on a property for a nice 4x2, I would probably rather you spend 700,000 north of the river than in Armadale. But that's just a personal thought. I think if you're buying down there, buy appropriately. I like people to spend under 600,000 in Armadale.
Yeah, it's crazy. You could buy something half decent for 300 a couple of years ago, which would have rented for probably 310. Now renting for 500 probably. Yeah. Before we run into, I want to ask this one, because this is an interesting one. What do you think about multiple tenants on a lease, i.e., share house, and up the rent for $250 per room?
Yeah, so there's not a lot of people that will do that. I refuse to personally. I won't do share houses. I am not comfortable doing it. I think putting 4 strangers into a house, you've got common cleaning issues. It just makes me feel icky, like how you all live together when you don't know each other. I'm not comfortable with that. So for me, it's a bit of a no. But yes, there are definitely people that are doing it. I think life is so much easier just having one lease, rent it out through a property manager, and get a good rent instead of pushing it too far. That's just me. I like living an easy life, though.
You didn't do backpacking through Europe? You didn't do the whole hostel life?
I was running a business. I haven't even lived with a friend before, because I had the business since I was like 23. So yeah, no, nothing. I'm waiting for my kids to turn 18, and then I'm probably going to go do that.
Oh yeah, my first rental was a room, probably the size of this room, with 2 bunk beds in it, with 4 people in the room, and I think I paid $100 a week. So I think you overpaid. I think I did as well. What about granny flats? So one of the things that investors are you seeing an uptick in granny flats, or the want of granny flats, or the creation of them? How's that looking?
Yeah, Sam in my office is probably a better one to answer that. But I think a lot of people, like the idea of doing granny flats and want to do them, but it does go into a little bit of a too hard basket when it comes to, separating, water meters and electricity meters. I think one thing that I always talk to investors first about with granny flats is you need to make sure that it's appropriate to have a granny flat on there. And by that, what I mean is that it's not appropriate to have a granny flat where to access that granny flat, someone has to go past, multiple windows and through the patio and into their granny flat. Because what if that front house is entertaining? What if they've got children and you've got, potentially a single person that you don't know living in the granny flat? Like, that's not appropriate living. So if you can build a granny flat and you can properly fence off the house so everyone's got good privacy, then sure, that's absolutely fine. Again, I like to live an easier life. I would probably say to you that granny flats are great for corner blocks where they've got separate access and all of that. But otherwise, I would say rent your house out for a premium and let the tenant take advantage of that granny flat, whether it be for their, a couple that they know, elderly families, friends, older children, etc. But my other thing is that, you'd want to get a pretty good price for a granny flat as well, because the cost of building and stuff like that at the moment is quite expensive. So
what would one rent for? Let's say it's a corner block subdivided, or not subdivided, but subdivided by a fence. What would a granny flat, a 2-bed, 3-bed granny flat go for?
I think a 2x1 you're going to get about $400 to $450 per week, and then you'll get for a 1-bedroom granny flat you'd easily get $330, $350 a week, I would think. Probably the one thing that I would factor in is laundry facilities. That's like one thing that I see, that it's, if you can try and have laundry taps in there so someone can be fully self-contained. That would be like one thing that I think would be a benefit. But yeah, it's really important that you're not just because you don't live there, and you might say, I don't care. You don't want to affect your main income for the block, which is your main house. You want that to be happy and decent income as well. But the funny thing is that with granny flats it's if you're going to consider doing it, it's probably good to consider doing it when the front house is sort of like empty. And the reason why I say that is because if you think about it, if you've got a 3x1 house on an 800 square meter block, and then you've got a 3x1 house on a 400 square meter block, the rental value doesn't necessarily be any different, because some tenants rather a big block, some rather a small block. So there's like not really too much of a value there. But if you put a tenant in a property in the front house and during their tenancy you build a granny flat and cut their block in half, I can guarantee you they'll be asking for a rent reduction because they've got half a block. But really, in theory, it shouldn't make much of a difference if you were renting it out at the start. So that's just something as well to maybe consider.
Well, it's interesting because you say $450 a week, right? $450 a week, and it costs, let's say, $220,000 for a granny flat, which is a lot, but that's still a 10% yield. Like, we're all chasing, 5.2, 5.5s, but a 10% yield is pretty juicy if you look at it from that term.
It is.
How you fund it, though, Joe.
I also just heard something the other day, just for the owner-occupiers listening, that something that the ATO are watching for is the owner-occupiers who have decided to put granny flats on their back of their property could be subject to capital gains tax.
Yeah, and also,
I'd be very
sell their dwelling, sell their house. It's been used for rental income. I previous in my other role, I was worked at a legal company, and there was another company that was trying to sell equity in your, like old people have a PPOR that's worth $1 million and they bought it for 100,000. So they've got $900,000, but they don't want to leave their house. So you sell 20% of your property to an investor and they give you the capital so that you can jump in the caravan and go live your best life while keeping the asset. Then when you pass on, they get 20% when the asset's sold. Awesome idea. But they couldn't, like, they came to the legal company because they're like, how do we work this out from a logistics legal standpoint? And there was no way around it. You had to pay. You've got a PPOR, which is tax-free, and then you're turning it into an investment, and you have to pay tax on the investing creating activity. So you can get in a lot of trouble for that. It's an awesome idea. I loved it. It was my favorite customer, but it just doesn't work.
All right. I want to ask this one, and then let's throw to Adam, because I want to talk to the areas. Because
this is a great question.
Everybody's frothing. They want to know where the interest is, but I want to know. I'll let you answer this, but I even know who in your team. We regularly would chat about this, and I think they've helped Joe.
Yeah, how many walls have you put up for us, Ash?
I don't know. You have to ask. I let Sam do all that these days, so it's she's the one to ask. So project managing a reno. I'm going to be completely honest. We're playing around with this at the moment because property managers in the past have always done it as, maybe not massive renos, but definitely renovation work. And there is a lot of time and expertise going into it. And so so personally for us, with, Sam in our office, we are definitely looking at a way that everyone can benefit from it, and a landlord can actually get, the attention and the priority when it comes to it. So, for example, if it was just, I know you've mentioned that this person's mentioned the rooms, but generally if it's just like a paint and carpet, that's no worries at all. Property managers generally will just organize that for you with their trades. But when it comes down to bathrooms, kitchens and walls, when it comes down to coordinating multiple people for you, that's where, there could be a fee. And when I say a fee, I'm not talking a lot. It might be $500, maybe it's $750 or something like that. But it's going to be so much easier to just pay a fee so that someone's prioritizing your job. They're going out there, they're doing a consult with you. Like Sam in our office will do a consult with you. She will get your quotes for the property. She'll do before, after photos, the whole lot, and prioritize it. That's probably the biggest thing to make sure, because you want to get this work done quickly as well. So people that are interested in flipping, that's a really great option for you. And also for the owners, like the way that I see it, if you've got a bathroom, I can arrange one contractor to go out to the property and do the whole renovation. And that might cost $20,000 for a brand new bathroom with one, building company that does it all for you. I would probably be happy getting you a quote and you paying $20,000 to do it. That's fine, because it's only one contractor I'm dealing with. But if you said to me, well, my budget's $10,000 for a bathroom, and I would say, well, listen, I could probably do that, but it's going to cost you $500 for me to do it, because it's a bit of extra work, because I'm going to have to get the bathroom stripped out. I'm going to have to get the plumbing sorted. I'm going to have to go source you new tapware and vanities. I'm going to have to arrange the tiler, arrange the glacier for the shower screen and the mirror, get the plumber back in for the taps, get the lighting done, get the paintwork done. So to save you paying $20,000, it's going to cost you $500 to pay, potentially a property manager to facilitate all those tradespeople for you so that you can get a better price. So I think that's the better way to actually look at add values on your home. Or you can just go pay Modus Property or a building company $20,000 and they will coordinate all those trades for you. So that's my opinion when it comes to property managers helping do those larger jobs.
Yeah, I think you just need to be careful of like exactly this. And I think I've told you this off air, Sam. Sorry, Ash. Actually, I think I said it to Sam. Maybe I said it to you, but it's 100% do it, charge, because you guys add so much value in that. And if you aren't able to put as much effort into it, it makes a fundamental difference to the investor. So any investor would be willing to pay $500 for that project management fee any day of the week because of that exact reason. Because if you're not paying anyone to do something for you, then they're forced to take the easy option by paying that $20,000. But do you see that much of a disparity, like in a bathroom, like 20,000 and you can get it for, 10, 12 kind of thing?
It's probably like I would say between whether you do it yourself or whether you get a company to do it. A bathroom leaving the same feature, like the same plumbing in the same places. When I've had the actual company, like a building company quote, it's been 16,000. So, but I reckon, but when I've done my own home and I've renovated my own bathroom, it's cost me 10,000. So I use those figures loosely because that's what I've experienced. Yeah, 10 to, I reckon 10 to 16,000, depending on who does it.
Yeah, I think you should totally do it.
Pretty good price for a bathroom. So, shall we? The moment we should get into the areas. Like, I love the legislation, but should we chat to the ad first?
Yeah, I want to learn about the areas. Before we do that, we've got to jump into our final sponsor.
There's nothing worse than going into a situation unprepared, especially when that situation is purchasing one of the most expensive assets of your life against a trained property expert in the form of a real estate agent. It's a scary thought, but it is a skill that can be taught. Do you want to learn how to become fully prepared when buying a property so you can get out there, buy your dream home or investment property without the fear of actually messing it up? Scott Agate, the founder and expert property negotiator at Hello House, has been helping people buy their properties by stepping in and negotiating with the agents and saving his clients tens of thousands and in some cases hundreds of thousands of dollars. Scott has now decided to share all that he's learned over the past 28 years in real estate so you can go out there and do the exact same thing on how to find a property, analyze that property, negotiate on that property, and transact on it to get the best results. He's created the Get Buyer Ready course, which is a step-by-step guide on how you too can become an expert property negotiator. It's the easy way of how you can avoid all of these agent games and get the best purchase price on that dream home or your investment property. The course is in short bites for busy people with no fluff at all. Just all the information you need to get buyer ready and secure that next property with confidence at the best price. Scott has been kind enough to give our community a massive discount with the link below. Sign up today before you even think about putting an offer on that next property, and it will be one of the best decisions you ever make.
There we go. Love it. So, the areas of interest. Okay. So what have you prepared for us?
Can we please put a full disclaimer on this? I don't follow data and analytics. I go by trends. So I just want to say that straight up.
Yes. Okay. So here's your disclaimer. This is not financial advice. Do not act on this. Yes. Okay. You are showing it, mate. It's up there.
Yeah, I can see it. That's good. I'm happy with that.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Yes. So it is all about just what are you seeing out there from a property management perspective?
Yeah, there you go. Good.
So,
good chat, Joe.
I have prepared a list of the last month where, interesting, because the last month where I've been asked to look to do online assessments for in the suburbs, and the list was actually bigger than what I thought it would be. But I'm going to give you the stats now. These are what I'm getting asked the most about. So on that list, they're not my favorite suburbs, but I'm just going to tell you as it is. Okay. Baldivis, Clarkson, and Seville Grove, and Swanview.
Swanview.
Yeah, I've been hit up the most on those. So Clarkson's no surprise. Seville Grove's no surprise. Baldivis is no surprise. Not my favorite area, but no surprise there because people still love it. But Swanview is a surprise that I've been asked.
Is that out Midvale way?
Yeah. So
a lot of renters out there. There's not a lot of investors.
I know the stock level's low. Like you won't find there's a lot of properties available for rent at any one time there. So I think that's really interesting. The ones that you've got your traditional Parmelia, Port Kennedy, Huntingdales, Kenwick areas. So they're all your stock standard. We sort of hear about them. We have heard about them quite regularly. The ones that are on my list that I don't get asked about a lot, and the reason why I love these suburbs is because I love hearing about suburbs where there's a trickle of interest and not a saturated market. When there's a saturated market, I know that you're just going to be having to, buy properties a little bit more than what you probably should. And but the trickle areas I find interesting. Now, I'm basing that on, I have some really clever clients and buyers agents where they are really smart. They have done and such a varied range of research. And I really take that on board. Every single one of you that, those that are listening that is looking for property, I am so interested in your sources for, for the suburbs. But the ones that come to mind that I'm quite curious about, I think watch this space, is Queen's Park is one of them. Midvale is one of them.
Yep.
And Swan View is still, even though it's been the most inquiries, I'm still interested in Swan View because there has been quite a lot of inquiries there. And Kinross. And I've mentioned Beckenham as well. So for me, they're the areas that I don't mind. Only a little bit of investor interest there. I feel like it makes sense because they're surrounded by some, more busier sort of markets. And I think that they're sort of, for me, if I was going to have a crystal ball and sort of say, if I was ready to invest in residential, where would I be looking? I'd probably consider those places.
Yeah, okay, because that's quite a sporadic mix as well. You've got northern Perth, you've got east, very mid. What was it? Swanview is in the middle of nowhere. That's so far east.
And I would say, I think Beckenham and Queen's Park, I think, are pretty safe-ish areas because they're quite close to the city, and I don't mind those ones. And they're next to Thornley and Huntingdale, which we've had, really amazing growth.
How is the plane, the plane noise over Queen's Park?
Yeah, you'll get a bit on Queen's Park. You get sort of more that Redcliffe, Forest Field, High Wycombe area. I don't think there is many people, put it this way, I've never had a tenant say to me, oh, I don't want to live in that suburb because of the flight path.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Well, this might be a reason. Swanview is in the DSR data and has a great score. Okay.
Good score. Good score. Thinking about Beckenham, Beckenham's seen a lot of it's done a good amount and still has done. The thing that's interesting then about Beckenham is it's a yield of 5.8% still. So are rents, is there still capacity for rents to grow in Beckenham?
Yeah, so in the Thornley, Huntingdale, Beckenham area, Queen's Park even, I call them quite diverse areas. So for me, I feel like they are quite a safe area. You get a good mix. You've got low income, higher income, middle income. You've got families, singles, FIFO. You get a bit of everything in those areas, students even. So for me, the diversity is what's going to continue some really good growth there. It's when we start getting to suburbs where you don't have that diversity. So if you asked me about a suburb and I said, your most common tenant in this property is going to be a single income, 4 children, blah, 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 you're restricting yourself with one type of ideal tenant. So so Beckenham, Queen's Park, Huntingdale, Thornley, those areas, I actually feel like there's a really great diverse culture there as well, which for me is something that I would be looking for in an investment property.
Yeah, because what I'm starting to see is that some of these more outer ring areas are getting very hot price wise, and these middle ring areas are kind of getting ignored a little bit. And then people are like, wait, I can buy, just a little bit this much more closer to the city by 20 minutes for an extra $50,000. Why the hell aren't I doing that? And then they start to shift and move, if they can afford it, obviously. These things that weren't on the list whatsoever, 6 months, a year ago, is now starting to, show some real interest. Kinross is an interesting one because what's the demographic like over there? Is that all double income families and
small families, couples, maybe one or maybe 2 children. So And I mean, I talk about that type of demographic because what that means long term is, someone who has got 6 children in their household full time, I can say this, is that there is less financial pressure on living costs when you have less children. That is definitely going to help. It's a big difference having 2 children versus 4 children. So, however, saying that, I'm very good and frugal at my weekly shopping, and I have got my shopping down to $300 per week for a family of 8. So anyone that wants any tips, feel free to hit me up.
Wow.
That's impressive.
It is impressive. Even I'm impressed. But ultimately life, you have less life stress basically when you've got less children. And when you've got a double income, or you're more likely to have a middle or higher income worker, they're generally in careers where they're going to be advancements as life goes on. They're going to have opportunity with their career. So that is going to create those capacities that you want in your property. But when you are attracting a demographic, and when I say single income, I don't mean single family, I mean single income. So maybe there's 2 parents, but there's one that works, one that doesn't because they're at home with the children. You're restricted a lot more, and they're not going to be advancing through life as quick. There's no easy way to say that, but that's sort of what I mean by it.
Yeah. So is there a way to find out where these better, different tenants are? How do we find that stuff out as an investor?
That's asking a local property manager. So I would absolutely be hitting up your local property manager wherever you are in Australia, and wherever you're wanting to invest, and saying to a property manager, I'm looking to invest in the area. Do you find that most tenants are wanting 3x1s or 4x2s? And they will say, oh, most people have got, 3 children, so 4x2s are better. No worries. Is there anything else that they're requesting? And then the property manager might say, well, most people will want a shed or a garage. And you say, okay, no worries at all. That's what I'm going to look for. It's as simple as having that conversation.
Nice. That's good.
A suburb that you didn't mention, you went on a bit of a run of suburbs. You talked about Beckenham and Thornley and all those areas. One you didn't mention there was Maddington. Is that does that get lumped in? Because people loved, and I chatted to an agent. Sorry, I'm sort of telling you a story here. He was telling me, and I chuckled a little bit. He said, I shouldn't say his name. He said, within a couple of years, Maddington, and this was 2023, would be $1 million suburb. And I said, okay, well, we'll see how that goes. He was an interesting agent, but yeah.
I don't know about that. It's a lot of industrial in Maddington.
Yeah, Maddington and Kenwick have the industrial side. It's at the bottom of the list. When it comes to Thornley, Huntingdale, Maddington's lower. When I think of Maddington, I think of big blocks and people storing car wrecks on their big blocks. That would be my red flag. That's all I think about. But there's been some great pickups in Maddington. So yes, Maddington's definitely one of those popular suburbs, but I just haven't had any recent activity in it. It hasn't hit my list. The other area I was just going to mention, and I can see Dan has made a
Osborne Park.
Osborne Park. Yeah, I just want to mention Osborne Park because I like Osborne Park. There's 2 sides of it. There's a very commercial side with lots of little units, and then there's the other side. So you've got Osborne Park, you've got Joondalup. Not that I recommend people buy units all the time, but I did have a client pick up a unit for $300,000 and it rented out for $550 per week.
Jesus. Well, this is actually the question that's come in. How will units fare? Interest rates will remain high for a bit longer. People's borrowing capacity may not be able to stretch to a house, and maybe a larger proportion of buyers pushed into townhouses and units. Are you seeing this?
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely. So where people have had that, originally that 450, 500,000 budget, and you just can't buy something these days with that. What they're doing is you've got some clients where you'd think, okay, they'll just move to a different market. Maybe they've gone to Geraldton, Kalgoorlie, Bunbury, but a lot of people have just reduced their block size. So they've gone down to that 300 square metre block, and they are buying, Joondalup, Osborne Park, Westminster, Nollamara, all of those areas where they can get a duplex and they can get something on a 300 square metre or even a townhouse. So what I think will happen is that you will, from a cash flow point of view, actually really, really performing well. But from a capital growth, it could be a little bit slower and a little bit safer, but it's still going to go well because it's close to the city. It's always going to be in demand. But I just feel like because you're not buying the land, that capital growth isn't going to be as strong as maybe an area that has 800 square meter blocks. But your cash flow is going to be very, very good. And I would say that the biggest home opens and the biggest rental market at the moment is all the 1 bedroom and 2 bedroom units. They are massive. We have to cap our home opens for all of them. They're huge.
Why? What, 1 and 2 bedroom units?
Yeah, I think
affordable and young people.
It's affordable, young people, and a lot of students that are studying in Perth. A lot of postgrad students. I've got an agreement with our local uni, UWA, where I try and prioritise those students. And I would say that I've got about 260 students on my list that need a room or a unit, and they're financially backed up, so they have money, so they would absolutely as a couple or a working couple might go, why would I spend $550 for a 2 bedroom unit when I can spend $650 a week, in get a big house in Rockingham? But they don't want the big house in Rockingham. They want the 2 bedroom unit close to the city. So that suits their lifestyle. So, I feel like you should just buy the best that you can afford. If you can afford a 700 square meter block, buy a 700 square meter block. If you can't and you can only afford a 300 square meter block, get the 300 square meter block. It's still a good market. The only thing that I would say try not to do is be careful of complexes where there's pools, spas, and lifts. You're going to get high strata levies. Just make sure it's in a complex of 4 or less. That would be my only tip. But buy just whatever, the best you can afford. That's all you need to do.
Yeah, that's a great that's a really good tip, actually. A lot of people try and scrimp and go too cheap, and it's not the best. But if it's all you can afford, it's all you can afford. So go for it, make it happen, take action, and get it done. But if you can afford something a little bit better, you might have a little bit of better growth. But that is interesting.
And just make sure you. So I was going to say, and to make sure you buy a banging deal, like buy the best deal, as you say, best deal for the buyer's brief based on, I don't know, I sorted that, Joe. So you say it, better than me. You say it more than me.
Buy the best property at the best price, in the best location for the buyer brief, because that buyer brief dictates all of the other things. Like if you need a 6% yield, you now can't go and buy a house. You have to go buy a unit somewhere. Or if it needs to be a house for you, then it needs to be a house, and you're going to have to do that. But that's interesting about those units in townhouses. Like I wouldn't be buying it for like a long-term, buy and hold if I need the capital really quickly. But there are different situations where, if you can make 50 grand, it's going to work. Great. Go ahead and do it. Yeah, like that's gonna be great. Are there any kind of questions that anyone has? We've had a whole heap, and I appreciate your you've got dinner still probably boiling on the stove because kids don't appreciate.
Is everything okay?
It is. There's no. Am I off mute?
Yeah, no, I can hear you.
Yeah. I can smell it.
Yeah,
I've had my partner stick his head in probably just to see if I'm still on. I am. And I would assume he's now boiling the pasta. So I might even get out of doing full dinner duties. Thank you. If you'd like to keep me just for a little bit longer, you'd be doing me a favor.
Awesome. Okay. We'll wrap it up soon, but throw in some burning questions. I want to know this one, because we did speak about this last time, and the train sort of extension up to, I believe, was it Clarkson, or was it did it go all the way up to Alkimos? Because Joe actually looked that up on the map. So I actually watched that live session, in two times speed, because I wanted to what did we talk about then? So what is the rental interest around up that Eglington? Is that sort of up further than Quinns, or where are we in relation to Quinns?
Yeah, further than Quinns. So, we were originally going up as far as Quinns, and now we're up as far as Alkimos. The interest is going up that far. There's some buyers agents just smashing the new builds up there, 20 new builds getting settled.
They're not called buyers agents. They're not buyers agents.
They're not buyers agents.
Spruikers.
Yeah, well, I won't get into the political side of it. It's over my head. But that there's a lot of builds going on up there. So Alkimos and Yanchep, I've had a couple of inquiries, even as far as Two Rocks going up there. My thoughts are that I mean, I love established homes. I don't love new homes. I think the value is in the established. I would go for an established 3x1 on a 300 square meter block any day over a brand new 4x2 in Alkimos. That's just me personally. But, you know, people invest for different reasons. So I respect that there's reasons why people would choose a new build. But it is getting quite far. I think long term, it's going to be absolutely fine. But with any new build estate, the minute that you've got a big influx of new homes all going on the market for sale or for rent or whatever, there is nothing to compare them to except for price. They are all look the same. They're all a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom. They all have the same quality fit out. You've got 10 of them on the market for rent or for sale. How does it stand out? There's no other way for it to stand out except for price. So you have to let the natural cycle go through with new builds, and for them to all get on their different wave of being listed and sold at different times. So for me, it would be long term. You'll probably be okay, but your building's expensive at the moment. You're going to be overpaying for. I think I heard that it was like 40% price hike in new builds, which is ridiculous. They're taking 2 to 3 years to build. I don't know if I would really encourage.
What's the pipeline? Do you know what the pipeline's looking like? Because are we sort of 12, 14 months ago, you were saying that we're a long way away from seeing any sort of significant number of new builds come. Are they starting to come, or are they still a year or two away? 3 years?
No, they're coming through slowly now. We're probably seeing on our books only, you know, we're getting sort of 3 to 5 each month, I think, from memory, slowly trickling in and hitting the market for rent. So, I mean, they're leasing fine. They're leasing no problem at all, because they're new builds. Everyone, again, you know, we talk about what people want. They want a nice looking home. So, and I think with people working from home more, the distance is probably not going to be a massive factor. So it is a nice location. It is close to the beach. It has a lot of pluses. It's my opinion is more of a personal one more than anything. But for me, I love property with opportunity. So give me a basic 3x1 any day that I can add value on. I can renovate. I can add a granny flat. I can do something to add value. For me, that's important for my investment journey. So it's just my thoughts.
Yeah.
I think this will probably be one of the last ones, because this has been a popular one as well. And
so let's come up to the other side. So you've gone super far north. Let's go not super far south, but down south. Yeah. How are you hearing about Mandurah, Dudley Park, Medlow?
Mandurah's got some good interest in it. The people that are looking, my red flags for that is there is a lot of houses with asbestos. So be mindful of that. I personally, again, personal opinion, I wouldn't buy a house that had asbestos in the roof or the ceiling. Fences and sheds are okay. So if you have that $500,000 budget, you're going to get a pretty old basic house. That would be what I'd be looking for. But in terms of you know, the growth and all of that, I mean, yeah, I think I know a lot of people that live down there, so I think that it's not bad. I mean, would I prefer Alkimos in a new build or Mandurah? That'd be a very, very tough one for me to decide, because I feel like there'd probably be better opportunity in the Mandurah property because you can add some really good value down there. So, but the Alkimos one would probably be better if you held on long term to, you know, finally get through the cycle of it. So you've got Greenfields was quite popular down there. And what was the other suburb? They said Meadow Springs, which Meadow Springs is is pretty. And Dudley Park. So they're pretty fun. I'm actually not getting huge interest down there at the moment, but they're definitely areas that are fine. If you're looking for better quality down in that way, people would go for Hall's Head in Mandurah. But there's also the cheaper
in Falcon. Like, do you like Falcon or?
Yeah, I mean, Falcon's it's a holiday place. It's where, you know, I've got friends that have got holiday houses in Falcon. So it's might be a bit seasonal, but potential. Coodanup, I know that it's at the bottom of the quality list, but it's affordable. So Coodanup might be one to potentially, if you've got that lower budget, the affordability is probably going to be a bit easier in that area. And then you've got Mandurah. So Mandurah is also down that way as well. And that was one of the ones on my list where people are looking at. And Mandurah's got like lots of canals and all of that. So Mandurah included enough. Mandurah's okay. Yeah, I would probably say for people that do like their data to maybe just check out what it's doing in Koodinnup, Mandurah, Hawes Head. I would be saying Hawes Head is your better. Mandurah would be my next preference. Koodinnup would be my bottom preference. But again, affordable. Like where else in Australia will you be able to buy such a good price? So
yeah, unreal.
I've called for last calls on questions. Somebody. Oh, here we go. So Jose, this will potentially be a quick one. He says, decent under 600K suburbs still exist. They definitely do, Jose. I mean, you won't find them every day of the week, but some of those. Which of those suburbs you mentioned, you're sort of seeing. Like, you see a few sales. Which ones are you seeing under that sort of 600K mark at the moment? Yeah,
so I would say with a 600,000 budget, you're going to have to. Well, one thing I'm going to say is make sure that you're looking from 500, because your 500,000 properties that you're looking at online are the ones that are going for 580,000. So make sure that you're not putting in your search bar 600,000 because they're going to be out of your budget. That's just my first thing. I would say to you that you're going to get a better quality 3x1. Then trying to find a 4x2 that's not going to be as strong. So you're going to have more options when you have the 3x1 under that 600,000. And then you would, out of those areas, I mean, a lot of them, you probably will still get in Huntingdale, Beckenham, Thornley, Clarkson, you're going to Wanneroo, which is north of the river, you're still going to. Definitely in sort of Medina and Leader. Leader, we've got I think it might be an off-market coming up, which is a 4x2 with a decent tenant in there, and that's going to be listed for 550,000. So that's in the town of Banana. So you have you can lots of suburbs, to be honest. Yeah.
You can still do it. The hardest thing
is,
a
little bit patient. Understand.
You've also got to work. I see a lot of real estate listings and it's already under offer. Like you need to build relationships with the agents around those areas. So just go to the sold section, see what things are actually selling for, and then chat with those agents that are selling the good ones.
Are you still seeing?
Can I get my tip with that?
Yeah. Please.
My tip. I've probably said this to you guys before, but a lot of investors I find look on like a Monday, start of the week, they get to work, they don't want to work, so they jump on their computer and they're looking at what properties are available. And every time they call a selling agent to say, what more details on this property, the selling agent will probably say, property sold, properties under offer. And it's because you're asking on a Monday and they've just done a home open. So now they're just finalizing those contracts. So I really encourage people to try and call and speak to selling agents on a Wednesday or a Thursday, assuming that Fridays, they have Fridays off. Wednesdays or Thursdays generally will be when the property will go to market for the week, uploaded for the weekend. And that's when you're going to be sending them a message, and you send it through the website listing so that you're on their database, and hopefully they've got that good system. And you say to them, can you please email me through a video for the property, the details to put the offer in, or the paperwork to put the offer in, and do you have a home open scheduled? And so even if you're not even sure if you want to put an offer in, ask for those details to get the ball rolling, so that then on, potentially on Friday, you might be booking in to have someone do a home open for you to go have a look. When you do that home open, or when someone does that home open for you and calls you up and says, yep, this one's great to put your offer in, you've got the paperwork already. Because if you don't have that and you don't submit it within hours of that home open happening, you're going to miss out, because you're going to call the agent on Saturday afternoon trying to get hold of them to get the paperwork, and they're going to be too busy and exhausted from the day. They're not going to get back to you. Finally, on Monday, you find out that's gone under offer, and it's because they've already dealt with it already. So that's like my tips if you're finding that's always under offer.
Be prepared.
What about those agents? Are they selling them before the opens though? That's kind of my little tactic.
Yeah,
like,
well, that's why you're having
we...
that conversation on Wednesday, right? So you now have that contract ready to go, and but
can get it inspected before maybe.
That's a great way to end this one. I think that hits the nail on the head. Sorry, what were you going to say, Ash? On top of that?
Oh no, I was just going to say that you have to look. You cannot trust a sales rep not to cancel a home open. If they've scheduled a home open for Saturday at 12 o'clock, you still check that home open time on Saturday morning at 10 o'clock to make sure they haven't removed it, because they do remove it because people are very feisty in putting an offer in that's strong enough to say to the selling agent, you have to accept this offer. Like, my offer's only standing till Thursday 5 p.m. or Friday 5 p.m. And for you to cancel the home open. And so it can happen. So please don't be complacent that doesn't happen. Yeah.
Or be the person that's saying that.
You're not throwing the smoke ball offer though. I don't like the smoke ball. I'm like, oh well, yeah. Will you buy this one? I'll buy another one. Yeah. Let's get something done. Ash, before we finish, what do you see? I'm holding off dinner. Last question. What do you see sort of us in 12 sort of months? You see rents sort of plateauing from the sounds of it, and markets sort of ticking along probably quite nicely from a growth. Is that sort of what are you seeing there?
I think we'll continue to see good growth for a couple of years in the sales market. I think that people assume that when you've had a big peak, that there's going to be a big drop off at the other end. I don't think that's going to happen in Perth. So if you're sitting there saying, I'm going to wait for it to drop, I'm not confident. There's no reason why it would. So, yes, I do hope for stability. It eases off, but for the next 2 years until the building industry recovers, it's still going to be pretty consistent and pretty good growth for investors. For the rental side of things, we will see still some growth there. Again, I hope that it stabilizes a little bit, or I hope that renters, change something within their lifestyle and their budget to be able to adjust to these new increases, because I think there's a little bit of both. So I think for the next 2 years, we're going to be pretty good. And sure, you're not going to get those massive growths potentially like you hear your friends getting. We had one in Rockingham. He bought for $370,000 3 years ago. We just sold it for $600,000. You're not going to get those stories again, but I don't think you'll get those stories again. But you're still going to get some good stories, but not those ones.
Yeah, you can't.
Just wanted to throw this one out there as well. Don't forget the cooling off, no cooling off period if you're throwing in sight unseen. So just be cautious.
Be very careful.
Understand what you're buying.
I know that we've got to go, but I've got a really good story. If I could just quickly share that, because
I'll stay. But yeah,
okay. This happened.
80 people watching.
This happened. I had a client that, again, he felt rushed. He bought a property. I looked at the photos. The photos look great. I really, I have a really good detailed look. I couldn't pick up anything. I'm like, I think it looks safe. Buy the property. He bought the property. Couldn't get through, and then when it was like the building inspection, it all gone unconditional. I went through the property at that stage. I went through the property, and it was a completely, like, he just about should have put a report in about this property, about this agent. The photos that were used were from about 3 years ago. They weren't current photos. The property had all the ceilings like screwed with beams holding them up. There were about 10, 20 mattresses out the back. There was a brick wall that had fallen, and it was part of the garage, so it didn't form part of the building contract. The brick wall was falling and leaning on the carport. Like, it was so dangerous. Inside the home, the walls were terrible. The kitchen tap, you couldn't even turn the taps. Like, it had like a little gas lever thing to turn water on. It was so bad. And that was the owner. I just felt so bad calling him up to say, like, what the hell has happened with this property? It was horrible. And I just, my words to him were, and I learned this, I think, from Dr. Phil or Oprah many years ago. And it said, don't worry about making the right decision, make the decision right. And I said that to him. And I said, you're just going to have to make this decision right, and we're going to get this sorted for you. So we managed to get, I think, a couple of $1,000s at settlement paid back to him for a skip bin and stuff like that. But it was pretty bad. And I guess if you do, just because someone mentioned that sight unseen, I don't think that the sales agent video is enough, and it's definitely not in as detail as what a property manager will do. But it's better than having nothing. And yeah, it can be a red flag if you can't get that current photo and that current video. So I just want to leave a little. Oh, you saw that property? Yeah, I put it on my social media for anyone that wants to look at. It was gut wrenching, but yeah, just be so careful because selling agents are there to get the best price for the property. You need someone on your team to be able to showcase that property in its worst position. So yeah, or engage Joe and Jeff, absolutely, and get them to do it all for you because it's never happened to your properties, guys.
No, you've got checks and balances in place. Ash, this has been a masterclass yet again. We need to make sure that we do it before 14 months. How do people? I mean, you've been chatting this whole time. How do people learn more about you, the business, what you guys do?
I'm very Googleable, and you can just put my name in Google and find me. But no, I've already actually had quite a lot of people so you can jump onto the Soco website where all the information about, support prior to buying is on there, as well as support after purchase. And you can also, I've already had, I think, 16 people from tonight befriend me on Facebook, so feel free to go befriend me on Facebook as well, and LinkedIn. I do have YouTube.
What's your limit, Ash? You got to 5,500. Like, how did you hack that one?
Because I am maybe like a creator page or something like that.
Yeah, probably. Sorry about going.
And so so something like that, I think. So on my YouTube as well, which is Perth Property Manager, there's also just some videos, things, like interviews that I've done with a settlement agent on title insurance and should you consider title insurance. Even a interview with a sales agent explaining why it's not a client-centric market at the moment and getting into the minds of it. So all of that self-education, the stuff that you guys do as well, the stuff that we do, there's just so much free knowledge around. Just absorb it all.
Yeah, there's so much more free stuff that didn't exist 5-10 years ago. Unreal session, Ashleigh. Thank you very much. To go check out Soco for your property management in WA. Let's do it. Let's go buy a property. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ash.